The studio lights blazed down on Jimmy Kimmel's set, the audience buzzing with anticipation as Keanu Reeves settled into the guest chair. The vibe was electric, but not in the warm, fuzzy way you'd expect from a late-night talk show. Keanu's jaw was tight, his eyes sharp, like he'd walked into a lion's den instead of a soundstage. Jimmy, usually the king of charm, leaned forward with a grin that looked more like a sneer. The crowd didn't know it yet, but they were about to witness a verbal cage match. "Welcome, Keanu. Always a pleasure," Jimmy started, his voice dripping with something sour. "Or should I say, Hollywood's favorite saint? Always so perfect, right?" The audience laughed, but it was uneasy. Keanu's fingers twitched on the armrest, his calm facade cracking just enough to show the storm brewing underneath. "Nice to be here, Jimmy," Keanu replied, his tone low, deliberate, like a man choosing his words to avoid detonating a bomb. "But let's skip the foreplay. You got something to say, just say it." The crowd gasped, a few cheers breaking through. Jimmy's smile faltered, but he recovered fast, leaning closer, his eyes glinting with malice. "Oh, I've got plenty to say. Like how you're not the golden boy everyone thinks? That charity stuff? The sad puppy act? Some of us see through it, Keanu. Some of us know you're just playing the game." Keanu's face darkened, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "You don't know a damn thing about me, Jimmy. You sit behind that desk, tossing out cheap shots like they're candy. You want to talk games? Look in the mirror." The audience roared, split between shock and excitement. Jimmy's cheeks flushed, his fingers gripping his cue cards like he was strangling them. "Cheap shots? That's rich coming from the guy who's been coasting on woe for 30 years. Tell me, Keanu, how much of that humble hero shtick is just a front to hide the real you? The one who's been dodging the truth about that stuntman lawsuit?" The air in the studio turned to ice. Keanu leaned forward, his eyes burning holes through Jimmy. "You're bringing up old rumors now? That case was thrown out, and you know it. You're scraping the bottom of the barrel because you've got nothing real to throw at me." "Pathetic," Jimmy scoffed, tossing his cards on the desk. "Pathetic? I'm not the one pretending to be Mother Teresa while my team buries inconvenient stories. You think you're untouchable, don't you? Mr. John Wick, too pure for the dirt of Hollywood? Well, I've got news for you, pal. Nobody's that clean." Keanu's chair scraped as he shifted, his voice ablade. "You're fishing, Jimmy. You're desperate for a soundbite, something to juice up your ratings. You want dirt? How about the fact that you've been riding my coattails for years, begging for interviews, then turning around and trashing me? On air? That's your game, and it's weak." The crowd was losing it now, some booing Jimmy, others egging Keanu on. Jimmy's face twisted, his voice rising to a near shout. "Weak? I'm doing my job, calling out the fakes. You're the one who can't handle a little heat." "What's wrong, Keanu? Truth hurt too much?" Keanu stood, towering over the desk, his voice a controlled roar. "You want truth? The truth is you're a vulture, picking at scraps because you can't stand that I don't need your approval. You're nothing but a loudmouth with a microphone, and I'm done playing nice." The audience erupted, the tension so thick it could choke you. Jimmy shot to his feet, pointing a finger. "You don't get to walk away that easy, Reeves. We're just getting started." Keanu's eyes narrowed, his voice a deadly whisper. "Oh, we're not done, Jimmy. Not by a long shot." He turned, striding toward the wings, the crowd roaring as the show cut to commercial, leaving everyone hanging on the edge of a knife. Backstage, the air was thick with chaos, as Keanu stormed through the narrow hallway, his boots pounding the floor like war drums. The crowd's roars still echoed from the studio, a wild mix of cheers and jeers that fueled the fire in his chest. He wasn't running away. He was regrouping, his mind racing with every barbed word Jimmy had thrown. That stuntman lawsuit jab wasn't just a cheap shot. It was a calculated gut punch, and Keanu wasn't about to let it slide. Jimmy, hot on. His heels burst through the curtain, his face red and twisted with rage. "You think you can just walk out, Reeves? This is my show, and you don't get to play the wounded hero here." His voice bounced off the concrete walls, sharp and venomous, drawing the attention of crew members who froze, wide-eyed, as the showdown spilled into their domain. Keanu spun around, his eyes blazing, fists clenched at his sides. "Your show? This isn't a show anymore, Jimmy. This is you trying to tear me down because you can't stand that I don't bow to you. You're not a host, you're a parasite." His words were a low, guttural snarl, each one landing like a blow. The crew gasped, some backing away, others pulling out phones, sensing this was about to be the kind of moment that breaks the internet. Jimmy laughed, but it was hollow, bitter. "Parasite? That's cute, Keanu. You're the one feeding off everyone's worship, acting like you're above it all. I did my homework, pal. That lawsuit wasn't just thrown out. You paid to make it disappear, didn't you? How many others have you buried to keep that halo shiny?" The accusation hit like a sledgehammer, and Keanu's face twitched, his control slipping. "You're lying through your teeth, and you know it. I've never paid anyone to silence them. You're making this up because you've got nothing but gossip and a big mouth. You're disgusting." He took a step closer, his presence towering, forcing Jimmy to tilt his head up to meet his glare. Jimmy didn't back down, his voice rising to a shout. "Disgusting! Look at you, acting all high and mighty. You're a fraud, Reeves. You think I don't hear the whispers? People talk, and they're saying you're not the saint you pretend to be. You've got skeletons, and I'm not afraid to drag them out." Keanu's laugh was cold, cutting. "Whispers? That's what you're banking on? You're pathetic, Jimmy. You're so desperate for relevance, you'll sling mud at anyone who doesn't kiss your ring. You want skeletons? How about the ones in your closet? Like how you tanked that writer's career because she called you out for being a sleaze?" The hallway went dead silent, the crew exchanging stunned glances. Jimmy's face paled for a split second before fury took over, his finger jabbing at Keanu's chest. "You don't get to throw that in my face, you sanctimonious prick. You don't know what you're talking about. I've built this show from nothing, and I don't need a lecture from a guy who's been skating by on charm and a leather jacket." Keanu swatted Jimmy's hand away, his voice a controlled inferno. "You built nothing but a platform to tear people down. You're not a journalist, you're not even a comedian. You're a bully with a spotlight. And I'm not here to play your victim." He leaned in, their faces inches apart, the tension so thick it could spark. "You want to keep pushing? I'll push back harder." Jimmy's eyes flickered with something like fear, but he masked it with a sneer. "Big talk, Keanu. But you're not as tough as you think. You walk away now, you're proving I'm right. Everyone will see you for what you are, a coward hiding behind a myth." Keanu's jaw clenched, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "I'm not walking away, Jimmy. I'm going back out there and I'm going to finish this. You want to fight? You've got one." He turned, striding back toward the stage, the crew parting like the Red Sea as Jimmy stood frozen, his chest heaving, knowing he'd just lit a fuse that was about to blow the whole show apart. The studio lights flared as Keanu Reeves strode back onto the set, the audience erupting into a chaotic mix of cheers and gasps. The commercial break hadn't cooled the fire. If anything, it had poured gasoline on it. Keanu's face was a mask of barely contained fury, his eyes locked on Jimmy Kimmel, who was already back at his desk, trying to look composed but failing miserably. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his tie, the crowd's energy feeding the storm about to break. Keanu didn't sit. He stood, arms crossed, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "You wanted a fight, Jimmy? Here I am. Let's finish this." The audience roared, some chanting his name, others shouting for blood. The atmosphere was a powder keg, and Keanu was holding the match. Jimmy forced a laugh, but it was thin, nervous. "Oh, look, the big man's back. What's this, Keanu? Gonna cry about how I hurt your feelings? Or are you finally ready to admit you're not as perfect as your fans think? He leaned forward, his voice venomous. Come on, tell us. What's the real Keanu Reeves hiding? Keanu's eyes narrowed, his voice low and searing. Hiding? The only one hiding here is you, Jimmy. Hiding behind your smug little desk, throwing punches you can't back up. You've been gunning for me for years, and for what? Because I don't play your Hollywood games? Because I don't need to beg for your applause? He stepped closer, his presence looming. You're jealous, and it's eating you alive. The crowd gasped, then exploded, the noise deafening. Jimmy's face twisted, his composure shattering. Jealous? Of you? You're a washed-up action star who got lucky with a few movies. I've got Emmys. I've got a legacy. You've got nothing but a sad beard and a fan club of losers. He slammed his fist on the desk, his voice cracking with rage. You think you're better than me? You're nobody. Keanu didn't flinch, his voice steady but laced with contempt. Nobody? I'm the guy who doesn't have to tear others down to feel big. You're the one screaming for attention, digging up lies about lawsuits, about my life, because you can't stand that I don't give a damn about your opinion. You're a small man, Jimmy. Small and scared. The audience was on its feet now, the energy feral. Jimmy shot up, his chair scraping back, his finger jabbing at Keanu. Scared? I'm not scared of you, you self-righteous bastard. You waltz in here like you own the place, but you're just a fraud. I know about the payoffs, the deals, the people you've screwed over to keep your image clean. You're no hero. You're a liar, Keanu's fists clenched, his voice a controlled roar. You're full of it, Jimmy. You've got no proof, no facts, just a loud mouth and a vendetta. You want to talk liars? How about the time you lied to your own crew about that budget cut? Let them take the fall while you kept your bonus. Yeah, I hear things too. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. You're not just a bully. You're a coward who stabs people in the back. The studio shook with the crowd's reaction, a tidal wave of shock and excitement. Jimmy's face went white, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You can't just... That's slander, you son of a bitch, he sputtered, his voice shrill. You're making that up to save your own ass. You're done, Reeves. Done. Keanu stepped closer, his voice a molten growl. Done? I'm just getting started. You want to drag my name through the mud? I'll drag you right back. You've been coasting on cruelty for too long, and I'm not here to let you get away with it. He turned to the audience, his eyes blazing. You all see this guy? This is who he really is. A snake who thrives on tearing people apart. I'm not playing his game anymore. The crowd roared, some booing Jimmy, others chanting Keanu's name. Jimmy's eyes darted wildly, his control slipping away. He lunged forward, his voice a desperate shout. You don't get to lecture me, Reeves. This is my stage, my rules. Get the hell off my set. Keanu didn't move, his gaze unyielding. Make me, Jimmy. Go ahead. Try. The challenge hung in the air, a dare that silenced the room, leaving everyone waiting for the next blow to land. The studio was a cauldron of noise, the audience's roars and boos crashing like waves as Keanu Reeves stood his ground, his challenge to Jimmy Kimmel hanging like a guillotine. Jimmy's face was a mask of fury and panic, his eyes darting between Keanu and the sea of faces baying for blood. The air crackled with the weight of the moment, every second stretching taut, ready to snap. Keanu's stare was unrelenting, daring Jimmy to make a move, while the host's bravado crumbled under the pressure. Jimmy's voice broke through the din, shrill and unhinged. You think you can intimidate me, Reeves? You're nothing but a glorified stuntman with a messiah complex. Get off my stage before I have security drag your sorry ass out. He jabbed a finger toward the wings, his hand shaking, but the threat felt hollow, a desperate swing from a man losing his grip. Keanu's laugh was sharp, slicing through the chaos. Security? That's your play? You're so weak you need backup to face me? Pathetic, Jimmy. You started this fire, and now you're too scared to stand in it. He stepped closer, his voice a low, burning growl. You've been hiding behind that desk for years, spewing garbage about people who actually have the guts to live their truth. I'm not one of your punching bags. The crowd erupted, some chanting Keanu's name, others hurling insults at Jimmy. A lone voice shouted, "Tell him, Keanu!" and it sparked a wave of cheers. Jimmy's face twisted, his eyes wild with desperation. Truth? Don't lecture me about truth, you hypocritical bastard. You're the one dodging questions about your past, about the people you've hurt. I've got sources, Reeves, people who've worked with you, who say you're a control freak, a fake who crushes anyone, who gets in your way. Keanu's jaw tightened, his voice a controlled inferno. Sources? You mean the bitter nobodies you pay to whisper lies in your ear? You're grasping at straws, Jimmy, and it's embarrassing. You want to talk about hurting people? How about the interns you screamed at until they quit? The colleagues you blackballed because they wouldn't stroke your ego? You're not exposing me. You're exposing yourself. The audience gasped, the accusation landing like a thunderclap. Jimmy staggered back, his face flushing crimson. You're lying! You're making this up to turn them against me! He swept a hand toward the crowd, his voice cracking. You think these people care about you, Keanu? They're just here for the show. You're a spectacle, a clown in a leather jacket, and I'm the one they'll remember when this is over. Keanu shook his head, his voice dripping with disdain. You're delusional, Jimmy. These people see you for what you are, a bully, who's run out of tricks. You've spent years tearing down anyone who threatens your fragile little world, but I'm not playing your game. You can't break me because I don't need your validation. He turned to the audience, his eyes fierce but steady. You want to know who I am? I'm the guy who owns his mistakes, who fights for what's right, not the guy who hides behind. A smirk and a script. The crowd roared, a tidal wave of support that shook the studio. Jimmy's hands clenched into fists, his voice a raw shout. Own your mistakes? Then own the truth about that lawsuit. Own the people you've stepped on to stay on top. You're no saint, Reeves, and I'll keep screaming it until the world knows. Keanu's eyes blazed, his voice a deadly whisper. Scream all you want, Jimmy. The world's already seeing you for the fraud you are. You've got no power here, not anymore. He stepped back, his posture radiating defiance. I'm done letting you drag my name through your filth. This ends now. Jimmy lunged forward, his voice a desperate snarl. You don't get to decide when it ends. This is my show, my rules. But the crowd drowned him out, their cheers, for Keanu swallowing his words. Keanu turned, his back to Jimmy, and started for the wings, each step deliberate, a silent promise that he was walking away on his terms, leaving Jimmy to choke on his own venom. Keanu Reeves' boots echoed as he walked toward the wings, the audience's cheers a deafening roar that drowned out Jimmy Kimmel's fading shouts. The studio was a battlefield, and Keanu was leaving it victorious, his head high, his defiance, a beacon in the chaos. But Jimmy wasn't done. His voice, raw and ragged, clawed through the noise, desperate to reclaim control. You're running, Reeves, just like I knew you would. You can't face the truth, you coward. Keanu stopped dead, his shoulders tensing, the air around him crackling with unspoken fury. The crowd hushed, sensing the final blow was coming. He turned slowly, his eyes locking onto Jimmy with a ferocity that silenced the room. Running? I'm not running, Jimmy. I'm walking away from your pathetic little circus because you're not worth my time. His voice was a low, searing blade, each word cutting deeper than the last. You've got nothing left but lies and a bruised ego. I'm done giving you a stage to embarrass yourself. The audience exploded, their cheers a tidal wave of support. Jimmy's face contorted, his hands slamming onto his desk, knocking over a mug that shattered on the floor. Embarrass myself? You're the one who's finished, Reeves. You think you can just walk out and everyone will forget? I'll make sure they know who you really are. You're a fraud, a nobody." His voice cracked, the desperation raw, but it only made him sound smaller, a man unraveling under the weight of his own venom. Keanu stepped back onto the stage, his presence commanding, unyielding. "Keep screaming, Jimmy. It won't change a thing. The world sees you now, a bitter, petty man who tears others down because he can't stand his own reflection." He leaned in, his voice a controlled inferno. "You tried to break me, but you broke yourself instead. You're not a host, you're not a star, you're just noise, and I'm done listening." The crowd was on its feet, their applause shaking the studio walls. Jimmy's eyes darted wildly, his chest heaving as he realized he'd lost the room, the narrative, everything. "You don't get to win this," he shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the chants of Keanu's name. He pointed a trembling finger. "This isn't over, Reeves. I'll bury you for this." Keanu's laugh was cold, final. "Bury me? You can't even bury your own shame. Look around, Jimmy. Your audience isn't yours anymore. They're done with your poison." He turned to the crowd, his voice steady, resonant. "You want to know who I am? I'm the guy who doesn't need to destroy others to feel whole. I'm the guy who fights for what matters, not for applause. And I'm the guy who's walking out of here with no regrets." The audience roared, some wiping tears, others screaming their support. Keanu's words weren't just a rebuke of Jimmy. They were a declaration, a raw, honest stand that hit like a lightning bolt. Jimmy staggered back, his face ashen, his empire of snark crumbling before his eyes. You can't," he stammered, but no one was listening. The crowd was with Keanu, their energy a wall of defiance against Jimmy's fading reign. Keanu gave Jimmy one last look, not of anger, but of pity. "You're done, Jimmy. Not because of me, but because you've been done for years. Keep your stage. I don't need it." He turned, striding off the set for good, the audience's cheers following him like a victory march. The cameras stayed on him until he disappeared into the wings, leaving Jimmy alone at his desk, the shattered mug at his feet, a symbol of his broken bravado. The show cut to commercial, but the energy lingered, the internet already ablaze with clips and reactions. Keanu didn't just win a fight. He'd exposed a truth, not just about Jimmy, but about resilience, about standing tall when the world tries to tear you down. Jimmy's career would limp on, but the narrative had shifted. Keanu walked away, not just a star, but a man who'd faced the fire and come out stronger, leaving the audience inspired, electrified, and ready to tell the world what they'd witnessed.